We've seen record high numbers of people attempt to study engineering in the past decade or so. They see how the economy favors people with practical education, and they may have also dug deeper into science and technology and taken more of an interest in it. But the dropout rate of engineering majors is quite high. Some have said that it gets close to 50%, and I saw my class size shrink quite a bit when I was there. So what's going on? And what are the factors that lead so many people to drop out of engineering? In this video, I will answer that question and lay out some of the most common reasons why the engineering dropout rate is so high, and you will be able to get a better idea of whether or not it can be worth your time and money to attempt it. Before we begin, I invite you to like this video and subscribe to this channel to hear more advice about engineering careers and how to succeed in them. And be sure to stick around to the end of this video to get a solid understanding about what types of people choose to drop out of engineering and what kinds end up sticking it out. So I think one of the reasons that a lot of people drop out of engineering is a mismatch in the expectations versus reality of what engineering is. So a lot of people come into engineering school with a vague idea of what it will be like, and it turns out not to be that way. Like they almost expect it to be like similar to a trade school with some theoretical math and physics in there, to be like kind of the higher version of a technician. And they might expect to go into more of the interesting stuff about how machinery works and stuff early on. And I thought that kind of stuff too, and maybe there is like a little bit of extent to which there is some truth to that, but the biggest complaints that I think I heard early on when I was in my program hearing about people who were choosing to drop out were just how hard and abstract a lot of the concepts seemed. So the Intro to Engineering course, they're kind of just winging some stuff that could be done well with complex knowledge. You're taking a bunch of 18-year-olds who don't really know anything about these technologies and just kind of throwing some random stuff around to see what sticks. And so it can seem pretty tedious. And, well, especially in the first year also, like, that's one of the few engineering courses you take is that Intro to Engineering class, because the first year it's a lot of gen eds, a lot of just the basics of math, calculus, and a lot of the gen ed courses. Perhaps one could say engineering doesn't become particularly interesting until you're able to do some of the more complex types of tasks for engineering design. Once you know kind of the basics of how the science works and what the math basics of the engineering phenomena are that lead to these more complex tasks that you can perform in mechanical design, mechanical analysis, or other stuff like that. And before that, it's a lot of tedious math. One classmate of mine dropped out and eventually became an electrician. I ran into him like a year after freshman year or something, and he said, like, yeah, I just wasn't happy with electrical engineering. He, I think, worked at Home Depot for a few years and then started to become a journeyman for becoming an electrician, and then became an electrician. And as far as I know, he's doing pretty well with that. So I think in this particular individual's case, and in some people's case in general, I think it just ends up making sense to go more the trades route that they find more interesting and perhaps less tedious. Let's go into maybe one of the more obvious reasons why so many people drop out of engineering is it's very difficult. Some of the classes are super abstract and just tons of math, tons of figuring out how to do certain types of math or certain physics concepts that seem abstract or seem really difficult to grasp. I mean, I, for one, just always didn't really like chemistry because I found it to be a lot more abstract than physics, actually. I found physics to be like you can visualize motion and gravity and forces and stuff. But that was just me. A lot of people are the other way around. The calculus, integrals, and differential equations especially have tons of rules and complexity, and it's not really directly needed for most practical engineering problems and technology. because a lot of these gen eds, like in the math department for calculus and in the physics department for physics or the chemistry department for chemistry, they don't really care about the engineering in the gen ed classes like that because they are more focused on their own agendas, and in that case more the knowledge for the sake of knowledge rather than engineering as the engineering department is more focused on. So many people get into the program and simply just don't have the technical skills to do well in these classes. They probably would be better off in roles that use more soft skills rather than having to learn all this technical stuff or all this complex logical stuff that only has one answer to it. There's also a reality that many people intend to have fun in college, and they find themselves spending so much time studying, and so they just find that it's not fun. And I mean, having fun in college is not necessarily a bad thing, or looking to have fun is not necessarily a bad thing. It can be good to sometimes enjoy your time and do fun things within reason. It is important to not waste this time and money without having a financial return on it. So I mean, and I kind of get it. As an 18-year-old, you view college as being like a fun time and everyone else is doing it. And it's like hard to think about just studying all the time and just it feels like a waste. But I think in the long run, you really are going to appreciate if you took the time to prepare yourself for your career and didn't waste so much time on things that don't end up really being valued memories or anything in the long run, because let's be real, that's what a lot of it is. A lot of it is partying and stuff that people kind of think is fun at the time and later on kind of view it as having been a waste of time. So, I would encourage you to think about this stuff. Again, not saying don't have fun, but definitely think of college as being an investment. Let's talk about how, in a lot of cases, the careers in engineering are also different than expected, which, in a lot of cases, this is a reason why people go into the career and then switch careers. But in a lot of cases, I think while people are still studying engineering and learn more about what it's about, perhaps talk to some people who work in certain fields of engineering, they just find out, I guess this isn't the kind of career that they're really interested in doing. They don't really want to do technical stuff on a computer and then go out to do work on the floor with their hands or whatever they would be doing as an engineer. So this can be the case. Engineers are a fundamentally different career path than electricians or technicians working with their hands. In a lot of cases, engineers are working a lot more on a computer, or they're supervising the people who are working with their hands or working directly on the technology. Engineers typically not doing the same kind of work that would be expected of technicians. So, if the kind of work that technicians do is something you'd be interested in, then probably I'd recommend you do look into that, because that is its own thing and can be fulfilling for a lot of people. You could also think of this as the difference between being a doctor and a nurse. So I'm talking about the difference between being an engineer and being a technician. It's similar to the difference between being a doctor and a nurse. Doctors tend to do a lot more of the quote-unquote knowledge work and a lot of tedious administrative tasks like running insurance and arguing with insurance companies and stuff. And nurses are the ones who are constantly up in front of the patients, administering medications, administering certain types of treatments, or dealing with emergencies as being on the front line of them and stuff. So engineers tend to know a lot more about the physics of what's going on in the technology, but they don't do a ton necessarily of the hands-on part of it. For instance, I myself have done quite a bit of analysis on bolted joints and on welds and such, but I have never actually gone up to a piece of equipment. I've taken a intro to welding class before, but I've never welded on the job before, or like welded hardware that's going on the stuff that we're building. That's work done by people who really know what they're doing in welding. So students may figure this stuff out early on and know, like, I'd rather not do all this administrative stuff or knowledge stuff, and they decide to drop out of engineering. So here's my advice in terms of how to approach this early on and how to most efficiently find the career path that's best for you. I think it's generally not a good idea to drop out of engineering in favor of a degree that doesn't have practical applications. So generally speaking, I don't recommend dropping out of engineering to study liberal arts or even some sciences that aren't super practical. I mean, that's kind of a different discussion, but I think the problem is, in that case, you're going to end up incurring a lot of student loans, and your degree is not going to really set you apart in certain job areas. So it's tough, but especially because like engineering can be super difficult and not enjoyable. So in these cases, like it could even just be worth taking some time to reflect on what you want your career goals to be and what's the best way to get there, because it can be challenging, like if you feel like you need to drop out of engineering and not really that many other great options. And again, like to my second point here, I don't think it's a great idea also to force yourself to stick with engineering if you know it's not the career path that you want to do. But the change should be towards something practical, like business or medical or trades, or something that's going to be practical in the long run, and do something that's going to at least help get you there, even if it's not like a directly related academic path or something. But having an actual plan is going to be a lot better than just blindly transitioning from engineering into psychology or biology or puppetry or something and then not having a plan. But with all that said, I would say if you are able to stick out the engineering degree and don't want to become an engineer, I think that could still be a good thing and be actually a lot better than dropping out and getting a less practical degree, because I mean, many employers, even ones who are not engineering employers, still like people with engineering degrees. A lot of cases they see like this is a person who can solve practical problems and who's really smart, even though the job I'm hiring for is not directly related to what they studied. I think this is attractive, and especially if you explain to them what kind of career path you want, and if it aligns, I think you're going to be a lot better off in that case than if you dropped out. But again, I mean, like, sticking it out is not going to be super practical for everyone, but it depends a lot on the situation, and I do hope that this was helpful in giving some sample scenarios, and hopefully one fits well with yours and can be helpful, and hopefully all of this in general was helpful in getting a perspective of engineering, why people drop out. But if you liked this video or found it helpful, and be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel to stay in the loop and get more engineering advice for your career. Thanks for tuning in. Talk soon. Bye.